Hey, fight fans, welcome back to Carl Prusa MMA. Today, I am with the returning guest to the show. He is top featherweight prospect. He is Mr. Snake Eyes, Radley Da Silva. Radley, what's going on, my friend?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely, man. You know, some big exciting news came out just a couple weeks ago. You're getting on the Dana White Contender Series. You're fighting on that first week, August 12th, taking on George Mangos. Pretty cool to get that phone call that you were going to be on the Contender this year.
Sorry, that last part cut out. What'd you ask me?
Was it pretty cool to get that phone call that you're going to make it on the Contender and you're really close of getting into that big show?
Yeah, dude, it was a super exciting call to get. I was in Vegas cornering one of my teammates, Jamie Siraj, and when I was just sitting in the hotel room, I got the news. I got it a while back, so it was kind of hard to keep hush about it. I've known since like March, like mid-March. But yeah, got a lot of notice for this one. Got a really good opponent, and it was only a matter of time. I knew I was gonna get on this season one way or another, but it's good to get that early notice to know I don't have to like take another fight. So I had perfect time to kind of unwind in the March, April, and then come back in May and start camp so I don't overdo it. But yeah, it worked out perfectly timing.
Absolutely. Obviously, you've been out in Las Vegas kind of recently, cornering Jamie Siraj. I think you were out there for Tough Enough a couple months ago. Being out there at that time, seeing everything, seeing the PI, seeing the T-Mobile Arena, seeing all the gyms out there, did that kind of really get you excited that, hey, pretty soon I'm going to be taking my turn in this area?
I think in the last 2 years, I've probably been there. Like I went from never have gone there before to like being there like four times in the last 2 years. So definitely getting used to the weather and the whole landscape of it and the dryness and it's not too big of a difference because the time is the same here, Pacific time. But yeah, you always get to see all the big gyms, driving by the PI, going inside the PI, and yeah, you definitely get more comfortable there. Like it's like the fight capital of the world, big things happen there. So you get more comfortable with that feeling the more times you go. And yeah, I'm lucky to have been able to go there so many times in the last 2 years.
Absolutely. We talked about it before, but to be a fighter, I think there's a really common misconception. A lot of people see the big names in the sport. They see the fame, the glory, the fortune. They don't see what it's like battling it out on the regional scene. You're not making millions of dollars fighting on the regional scene. But more importantly, you have to dedicate your whole life to fighting. I mean, you miss birthdays, you miss weddings, you miss Thanksgivings, you stay up late, you wake up early. You do this day in and day out to try to be the best in the world to maybe fight in the big shows. Well, you're on the door right now, obviously having to make all these sacrifices through your career. When you get news like this, does that just really reinforce that, hey, I'm on the right track and everything I've been doing is worth it?
Yeah, definitely, man. Like I don't know if I said before last time we talked, but I was already on the verge of retiring just solely on the fact that I couldn't find fights and all that stuff. So it felt like maybe it wasn't the right path to take in life. And eventually when I started fighting again, everything kind of moved out of the way for me. Life just like gave me a clear path. So to be able to, it'll be 2 years from the day where I decided to actually keep fighting which was in August because I got a call in August to fight in October, and that was exactly 2 years ago. So, if I can get this UFC contract this August, it'll be a few days before my daughter's birthday. It'll mark 2 years from the day where I said I was going to give it another chance, and it's kind of like yeah, totally a full circle moment where it'll feel definitely worth it.
Do you feel that fighting is more mental than is physical?
Depends how good you are. 'Cause, if you're not that good, I'd say you definitely need a lot of time in the gym and you need to learn, you need to get more physical. Your body, it's like muscle memory, you know what I mean? So it's definitely very physical, but it's for if you're, there's a lot of guys who are so good in the gym and they're like, people will say, oh, this guy's gonna be a world champion and because they destroy things in the gym, but when they get on the stage, it's like a mental thing that doesn't click for them. So at a certain level, like I would definitely say it's more mental than anything. Like even the champions say it. There's not that much big difference between the guys who are champions and the guys in the top five or whatever physically, but it's just that mental edge that gives them that a little percent more that makes all the difference.
In addition to one thing I noticed about you, the reason why I bring that up is you're very calm, you're very composed when you're in competition, but you're a very well-rounded mixed martial artist. I mean, we've seen you finish guys with spinning wheel kicks. We've seen you submit guys. How proud of you are of your style?
Yeah, just being such a fan of like MMA itself, and a student of the game. Like I take pride in having a very like cerebral style. Like I love entertaining the fans, and that's something that comes naturally to me. I don't have to force it. But what is something that it takes a lot of work and a lot of time studying, and watching other fighters do it, and trying to add it to your own, is like having that cerebral mindset and being able to be well rounded, not just physically, but mentally as well.
Absolutely. One of those fights that I think a lot of people look back at you from the regional scene is obviously BFL 81 when you took on Drake Randall. I mean, you were able to land that spinning wheel kick. What was your Instagram? What was your phone like after that? Was it nonstop blowing up when that clip surfaced?
Yeah, it was definitely nonstop. It was definitely nonstop, but I think I personally like kind of, put like a little, turn the flame down a little, because I didn't want to get too high on the feeling of like, whoa, everybody's like, super stoked on me. I didn't want to just be like, too emotional or get too high on it, because like at the end of the day, it's just on the regional scene. Like by the time I was out of the arena, I was like already over it. Like I was like, okay, on to the next. Like, and for weeks, obviously, people would send me news articles every other day of like another news article, like Yahoo Sports, MMA Junkie, all like the big news article every other day. Someone would send me them posting my knockout, but I was just personally, I just had to like keep it very just under wraps emotionally, because you can't get feeling like you're the man in the regional scene because you got a knockout. Like maybe if I'm doing that in the UFC and getting 50K bonus, I'll be a little more hyped about it. But on the regional scene, I'm just happy that it got more eyes onto me, and that it did what it served to do, like just to get more attention onto me. But as far as personally, like it happened and I was stoked about it, but I was like over it by the time I was out of the arena. No joke.
What one thing to me is absolutely crazy. I've been a fan of this for such a long time. I think I started watching the first season of The Ultimate Fighter, 2005, Forrest Griffin, Stephen Bonner. The sport has widely expanded. It's a lot more culturally accepted now. It's a lot bigger now. You have UFC events almost every single week now, all these other promotions. And I think the regional scene has really blown up as well, especially in Canada. Now you have all these great Canadian regional promotions. You have your BFLs, you have your Samurais, you have your Unified. It's allowing Canadian athletes to have more opportunities to try to fight at the big shows. For you, what do you think are some of the reasons why it's exploded so big on the regional scene in Canada?
I honestly think there's always been that bed of talent in Canada. It's just the problem was like what you said, there wasn't really those shows to push the talent like that. So even a problem for me, like I said, which is why I kind of wanted to retire, is just like I couldn't get fights. There was like one or two promotions in all of Canada, and everyone knows you in Canada, so they don't want to fight, and there's nowhere else to go, and you kind of just get stuck. Like there's so many people who, kind of just withered away in the Canadian scene because they couldn't get anything going. You would have to probably move somewhere else, or be one of the lucky few who had a good string and was able to get fights and made it to the bigger show. But yeah, it was very hard early on here with virtually no promotion. There are no shows being put on. And yeah, now that there's definitely, you're starting to see all the people that either held on long enough to take advantage of that, or the new wave that are coming in and making a name for themselves. But I think, yeah, it's only a matter of time. People always talk about Canada on the national level, like kind of like the joke, like they're like, oh, they're fighting a Canadian guy, like, it's an easy fight. But that's due to the circumstance of what I was just talking about, with all the regional problems developing the talent. So yeah, and hoping that I can get on the big stage and represent for Canada and really help push the new generation of Canadian fighters to see that you can go from the regional scene and make it onto the big show and do well. So I'm hoping to really add to that.
We've seen a lot of Canadian fighters from the eastern part of Canada. Obviously, a lot of guys from Ontario make it to the UFC. Some guys from Quebec make it to the UFC. We haven't seen too many Western Canadian guys doing things in the big show. Does that really excite you that you get to be one of those first guys from Western Canada to try to make a big run?
100%, dude. I definitely think about that all the time, especially with UFC Vancouver coming back now so often and stuff like that. But yeah, if I can get this contract August 12th, I'll be the only male UFC fighter in all of BC, really, in Western Canada. I think maybe Chad Anheliger might be the one other dude, but he's like Midwest. I'm like West in Vancouver. So, yeah, there's no male fighters right now. It's only the two ladies really putting it on for Vancouver is Lupi Godinez and Jamie Lynn Horth. So, I gotta take some of the weight off their shoulders because they're just carrying the whole ship right now for the West Coast, and I'm gonna be very excited to be able to do that. And also, we got Rodrigo on the Ultimate Fighter show. Hopefully, he can get do have a good result. I don't haven't seen his fight yet, but hopefully, he can have a good result on there, and also be another fighter representing the West Coast. But I know he's very good, so either way, he'll be on there soon enough. Either way, but yeah, hopefully, just this year alone, hopefully we can get an extra two UFC fighters from the West Coast, and then we can really stack out that Vancouver show.
Absolutely. So you're fighting August 12th. You're taking on George Mangos, a top guy from Australia. Overall, what do you think of him as an opponent?
Really good, man. I think the UFC knew what they were doing with this matchmaking because it's like the battle of the Commonwealth. You got two guys on 7 fight win streaks. I think stylistically we're both very exciting as well. We're both four-time champions for our organizations that we're fighting for regionally. So it's the UFC did an amazing job with the matchmaking, and I'm very excited for this fight. Like it's the best opponent I've fought so far, and saying that, I think it's the perfect opponent for me to be fighting at this stage of my career. Like this is the exact type of person I need to be fighting. I fought undefeated young guys before, and the right now he's a little higher level than the last. So this is a challenge where it's not too much to ask for a guy like me. It's definitely not too easy of a challenge where I'm not going to take it serious. It's like the perfect challenge for the perfect time in my career. So I think it couldn't have worked out any better. Like I watch all the regional shows worldwide, and I already knew of him, and I know of all the top contenders in my weight class all around the world. So as soon as they offered me the fight, I knew exactly who it was, exactly what I was in for, and I was super stoked for it.
When I saw this one, I got really excited as well. Why? Because both of you guys are very well rounded, very complete mixed martial artists. Could you see this one being very technical?
I mean, it's probably gonna have to be like like he's good on the feet. I've been basically unhittable my whole career. Like it's hard to really pan out because he's got decent jiu-jitsu off his back. I got really strong wrestling and top control. So it's like it's probably going to be a tactical one, but I could see a finish, because we're both guys when once we get the advantage, it's hard to stop. So either way, I definitely there's going to be an exciting fight nonetheless. Like how can it not be an exciting fight with both of us in there? So yeah, I'm super excited to do whatever it takes to get the win. All I know is that's the only job I have to do is to get my hand raised. The rest of it will figure itself out, because I can get the win in however fashion, and for whatever reason, maybe they don't like my style or they don't see a need to add me to the roster, and I don't get it, and then I overstressed for something that I have no control over. So the only thing I can control really is getting my hand raised, making sure I basically become the number one guy in Australia by beating him and taking his title. So for me, it's just there's so much to look forward to in the matchup itself that all I'm focused on is getting the win by any means necessary. If they like my style and the other things play out, and then I can get the contract, that's just a bonus.
One thing I love about the Contender series is where they do it. Obviously, they do it in the Apex, but I like how raw it is. They don't really have walkout music. You just go, you get in there, you fight, and you do your thing. Do you enjoy that kind of intimate, cerebral, kind of low key environment?
I definitely am like a showman. I like to perform in front of big crowds. If I could choose it anyway, I would love to do arena shows every time. But I do like the aspect of the Apex because it feels like very pure. You're gonna be able to hear your coaches. It's kind of like it's almost like you're in the gym in a way. You're just having a really intense gym fight. Um, and that's something you're gonna have to get used to if they keep using the Apex either way. So is definitely something that you should be used to if you're just training in the gym anyways, but it's something that it's a privilege to even get a chance to do that because it might not be around forever or who knows how it is, but either way it's a definitely a different adds a different aspect to the fight for sure.
You mentioned you're a big fan of spectacles, and one thing I think is really cool about you, and I'm not sure a lot of people know it yet, you're also a professional stunt guy on the side. I think you're real on YouTube, and you're doing all these different stunts, running over subway crossings, doing all these things for different movies and stuff. You also done motion cap stuff, where you did some motion cap stuff for some of the guys in the UFC video game. How did you get into this whole world of movies and acting and all this crazy fun stuff?
It's another family thing, man. I just do whatever my family's done, right? Which is, I mean, which is like a very old school thing. Like you kind of do what your fathers do, and like, yeah, growing up, my dad did some movies. My cousins are like very big in the movie industry, and they're both stuntmen as well. So they kind of, told me like you got to use your talents, man. You can't let them waste away, right? Because I wasted my whole childhood acquiring these talents, and it would be a shame to just let them waste away and not use them at the highest level. So that's kind of how I got into that, and it's a great job because it kind of requires me to be in shape. It requires me to be ready, mentally and physically to perform in front of cameras in millions of dollar sets. Everything riding on you, and you got to do it, perform safely, you got to perform accurately, and you got to yeah, be in shape. And it all kind of ties in together with being a fighter, and it's a very part-time job too, so it gives me all the time in the world to train and maintain a fight shape as well. So it's something that just like goes hand in hand with being a professional athlete.
When you're in the thick of training camp like you are right now for the Contender fight, are you still doing the stunt stuff, or does that kind of take a little bit of a backseat?
No, it definitely takes a backseat. I'll do like, super uh any like relax like chill movie stuff. Like maybe sometimes we'll have like special ability stuff or background stuff. If they just need like something very simple, like maybe I'll do that. But other than that, like I'll still do like, the UFC game because it's kind of like a training day anyways. But as far as like, doing crazy stunts, I lay off of that, especially with the opportunity, the one I have right now with Contender Series. I don't want to, possibly injure anything. So, yeah, I kind of take a break from that stuff.
You mentioned that mixed martial arts, something that, you kind of follow suit with your family. And a lot of members in your family have been down this road and heavily involved in the world of martial arts. What's it like to be on that journey with family members?
It's something that, something that you only really dream of at first. And after a while, it started to feel like it was not as attainable. But luckily for me, the last 2 years have shaped out the way they have, and it's kind of like put everybody back in the hype of like, because right now the younger generation that's coming up after me is a bit young right now. They're still in like early high school, so still waiting to see if there's any other takers of the of the family lineage for fighting. But if it ends with me, then so be it. But at least I want to take it to as far as any of us have gone, and that's a hard task to follow because my cousins have fought all over the world, had highlight reels everywhere. So I definitely just want to come in and make it into the farthest as I can at the highest, I guess, the hardest promotion, which is UFC, right? The toughest level of competition is the UFC. So I want to get in there and make it as far as I possibly can go to try to set the bar even higher. And where that is, and only God knows right now. But I hope that I can make it as at least to a belt or a top ranking in my career.
Another thing that's really interesting when you look at your record, you dropped your first professional contest. Being that you don't have that zero, you're not undefeated. Do you feel that gives you a more of a free feeling? Do you kind of like that in a way? Is that pressure off?
Yeah, as far as pressure, I mean, I wouldn't mind the pressure. I actually feel like I'm the kind of guy where the more pressure you put on me, the better I do. And that just comes from like, years working in entertainment and performing in front of crowds since I was a kid. Like sometimes when there's more eyes, it's like, when let's just say someone's watching you, you want to do better, right? So it kind of makes you perform better. Like I'm sure you've been there where you're doing something and then someone got their eye and you're like, okay, maybe I'll push this weight a little harder or something. It gives you, for me personally, it just gives me that motivation. But yeah, losing the O like in my first fight is crazy because if you look at how many like some of the greatest fighters ever like lost their first fight or first two fights, and It does. I could see that being a thing where, it takes some pressure off you, but mostly the most important thing I got from that loss wasn't anything about pressure, because I'd like to add as much pressure as I can to myself when I'm leading up to fights. But what I got from it the most was what it actually takes to train for a fight, because when I took that first pro fight, I literally took it on a few weeks notice after like a layoff of not training for like a year and a half. And I thought I didn't need to train for anybody. I was like, man, I'm way too good to lose to anybody. Like, there's no way I'll lose to anybody. And like, I took the fight against the undefeated guy in my pro debut, who in his hometown. Like, I flew down there, barely made the weight, didn't train at all, like, didn't give a crap, and I like won the entire fight until the last round with like a couple minutes left. I completely gassed and like physically did not want to be there. And the easiest thing to do when you don't want to be there is give like a rear naked choke. That's the easiest way to go. And that's exactly what happened to me. So what I was able to take from that was just like the seriousness of what it takes to actually prepare for a fight. And I've carried that with me for the rest of my career now. And like now I like over prepare, like to the point where I think that's why I've had so much success in my regional career in the last 2 years, is because I train like I'm already in the UFC. Like I train like this is my full-time job. There's nothing else going on but this, and that's probably why I've had the success I am, and where that's why I'm going to end up there, is because I already live life like I'm there.
You mentioned contemplating retirement, during that COVID time where everything shut down. It was so hard to find fights, taking some time off, coming back, and obviously on a vengeance, big win streak, going here to find the Contender Series. How have you changed and evolved as a person since that time?
Since the time before the win streak, or
Yeah, exactly.
during?
Since the time when you almost contemplated retirement, like right before COVID, like last fight before you weren't sure if you were going to do it again. How have you changed from then to now?
Um, I would say definitely my maturity, as far as like, like I said, I had that scare of losing my first fight. So what I would do is just train my ass off to the point where I was like limping into the arena, before like I have like shin splints, injuries, and I would just overtrain. And now it's like maturing and realizing like, you have to have confidence to know when to take a day off and actually do it and all that stuff, and trust your skills and your shape and all that. So it's been a lot better lately, where I can actually feel good during camps and show up to the fight not destroyed, and be able to give a better account of myself in those performances, because I was able to listen to my body, and I learned that throughout the time that I was in camp. So as well as just being able to be okay with giving up like those moments outside of fight camp, where like I said, like you said, sorry, birthdays and get-togethers and all that stuff. Before, it would be like, man, I felt like I was missing out, but now it's like I feel like I'm missing out if I'm, not training and stuff. That's when I feel more like bummed out. But I understand that, it takes sacrifice to achieve anything in life. And I'm taking it way more in stride now. I don't feel like before, where I wasn't getting fights and missing those things. I was like, man, this really sucks. But now it's like, well, at least I have something to actually, like I'm working towards, and I'm just not hoping. So for something at the end of the tunnel, I know what I'm looking at every time I go to the training camps and stuff like that.
Do you envision that moment of shaking Dana White's hand and him telling you that you've earned a contract to find the UFC?
I envision every moment about it, man. I envision the press conference beforehand, talking to Lorosenko and all those people, letting them know about my life story. Being in the back warming up, going out there, getting my hand raised. I envision different ring announcers. I know they do sometimes. They use two different guys, but so I envision both of them. I envision getting my hand raised, envision walking out of the ring, shaking Dana Hunter, Sean's hand, going to the back, talking to Laura again, like all of that, every bit of it, and celebrating with my family afterwards, and the dinner after. Like I envisioned everything. I'm surprised I didn't envision myself using the washroom beforehand, but it's like, yeah, to me, it's like it's played out so many times in my head. It's not even like I don't even get butterflies about it anymore. And yeah, I know when I'm in the back, obviously, the most the most like nervous you feel is when before you even start moving, you're just in the back and you're sitting there chilling. That's when you'll probably feel the nerves. But as soon as I loosen up and all that, I know I'm gonna feel like right at home. Like this is something that I've envisioned like for 4 or 5 months now. So
What would it mean for you to be able to earn a contract to fight in the UFC?
it would mean opportunity to change, the trajectory of my family's life forever, right? And to change my legacy and leave something behind, for my daughter to look at and for my the younger generation of my family to look at. Yeah, it would just mean that, man, because like I said, I've been doing martial arts since I was 5. It's been a long time coming, and everyone thought I would get there so early, but sometimes everyone has their own time, right? You can't be looking at other people's movie and thinking that it's going to play out like yours. So I'm just happy to be living in my dream right now, and yeah, when we get there August 12th, we're going to be living another day in Radley's dream.
What do you want your daughter to take away from this journey?
Just the resilience it takes to, achieve something that you really had set forth for since you were a kid. And sometimes it doesn't come easy and it doesn't come when people expect it, or even sometimes when you expect it. But, just be able to uh, persevere and know that if as long as you keep working, the right things will happen. If she can take any of it, just a little bit of that journey, and use it in her life positively, like, yeah, I'll have done my job.
Absolutely. All right, Radley, last question for you, my friend. In a perfect world, what is the outcome August 12th when you find the Dana White Contender Series against George Mangos?
Perfect outcome. I get the win. I get the finish. Either way, I'll be happy with a win and get that contract, and then turn it back around right away and get on that UFC Vancouver card.
Very good. Well, Radley, man, thank you so much for the time. Awesome to see you on the Contender. Really enjoyed watching you fight in Battlefield. I'm really excited for you to see you maybe take that next step and find a really big stage.
Thank you, brother. Thanks so much for having me, man.
Absolutely. That's it for us today. I'm Carl Prusa. He is Mr. Radley Da Silva. Watch him August 12th by the Dana White Contender Series, taking on George Mangos. Take it easy, fight fans.